Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. On the agenda tonight, I had a look at Patti Smith back in 1978 on the old grey whistle test, and she played through because the night, unfortunately, it got blocked worldwide on copyrights, so it's now 2:30 in the morning and I'm redoing this video, but we're going to stick with it. You guys can be interactive and click on the link in the description below, and I'm gonna pin it to the top of the comments as well so you guys can watch the video that I've just watched. And just for reference, I initially jump in to the video at 2 minutes and 17 seconds. That's when I first start my analysis and then continue from then on. So hopefully you guys enjoy this analysis. Go and watch the video and then come back here, and I'll see you guys after the video in the comments section. I'm just going to jump in here because there is so much going on within this song, and breaking it down, we're just about to go into middle 8, but I want to draw your attention to this overall composition, the journey that we go on throughout it as well, just dynamically, because we've got the piano intro just so understated, and then Patti comes in with the vocal and the bass comes in as well, and then when we kick into the verse proper, we've then got the drums coming in, and then we've got the pre-chorus as well, and when we get into the chorus, we've always got an ascension in terms of a crescendo getting into the chorus so that the chorus really does pop out. And Patti is one of those artists that some people might reference as a punk artist or being synonymous with that style of music, but here, really new wave we're pushing into, because there are so many musical elements in here that combine the attitude of punk but the musicality of pop music and standard progressions and such melodic content. On this particular track, Bruce Springsteen was a co-writer, so you had his melodic input as well. I want to draw your attention to when the drums come in, because it has been a prevalent point in my recent videos about drummers and how it's so important for them to be on tempo and not pushing tempo. And when the drums come in here, absolutely spot on in terms of just pushing the tempo slightly from that emotional and melodic intro we have on the piano, but it's not too much to lose the feel of the track. And that is essential to get across the feel, but also for Patti to get the emotion through with the vocal as well, because every single one of these words has to be audible and understandable. You need to be able to hear them and react to them in time. Sometimes when the tempo is pushed, you'll find that a singer is rushing the lyrics and you can't really hear what's going on, and you don't have time to get an emotional reaction to the lyrics because you don't have that time after what has been said in order to process those words and have an emotional reaction to it. So it's looking at it in real detail, but it's so important. This is why coming in too quickly on the drums can sometimes ruin the message of a song, because the lyrics just pass you by well too fast. So going back to the variety in this performance, the progression that we've got, the journey, listen to the dynamic change from the chorus going into the verse. You'll have to rewind it to really appreciate how it just drops so that Patti's vocal now sits on top of that really understated backing. And also when we do get into the chorus, the way that we stick out now with 4 lead vocals that all join in for this gang chorus, which just sets it apart from the verse and the intro. It just really does take it up a step dynamically, and it has such a dramatic effect musically. So putting the spotlight on Patti and her delivery vocally, because there's so much melody in her vocals. It's not that punk delivery in terms of being sketchy in terms of the pitch. There's a definite pitch and melody that Patti follows throughout this whole song, and that's essential in order for you to be able to sing it back, but also to be able to connect with the song musically because of the melody that's within it, and that takes hitting pitches. Patti has got to be able to sing full stop in order to deliver this song really well. Often it was the case that with punk music, The attitude is what was under the spotlight, and the pitch, the vocal delivery, the melody was secondary to the attitude. Whereas here, we've got that balancing of attitude and musical accuracy and pitch and delivery. So that's why I said it was new wave at the beginning of this video, is having that crossover between having those musical elements in there, but also delivering that punk attitude at the same time. And mentioning Patti as an artist, she is an artist in so many different ways because she writes poetry and she can obviously compose music and sing, but photography as well, performing arts. There are so many things that Patti has turned her hand to, and I think music was just one of those things that she channeled her artistry and creativity through, and there are so many mediums that she used in order to do that. We'll get into a little bit more about Patti after we've just watched the final part of this performance. And there we have it. As you can see, it's just about to cut out, so I had to stop it right on the button there. But this is another great example of, well, a great mix, a great sound from the old grey whistle test, which was such a great show where they just plugged in and played. So a really dry sound vocally, which tended to always be the case with punk music, but also the old grey whistle test just having a mic set up and no frills really with any of the performances. And with punk music, it was all about getting the message into the listener's head as quickly as possible without any frills, no reverb or delay, anything like that on the mic. We've also got a little bit of fuzz on the guitar sound here as well. Again, an aggressive sound in the lead just because of the nature of the music. And this performance was in the same year that the track was released in 1978, and it got to number 13 in the US charts, and it got to number 5 here in the UK charts. So did really well here in the UK. And just getting into Patti and where she started, in 1969 she went to France with her sister, and that's where she started busking and also got involved with performance arts and was performing in plays, certainly in the early 70s. Patti was initially considered for the lead vocal position in the band Blue Oyster Cult. She was dating Alan Lanier and she was also writing lyrics for the band, but then in 1974 is when she then started performing with her own band, and that was rock music that she'd be performing at that time. She came to the attention of Sam Wagstaff, who was an art curator and collector at the time, and he financed her first single recording, and on that single she did her version of Hey Joe, and on the B-side she had a track called Piss Factory, which was in reference to her previous job that she'd been working at on a factory assembly line. So already you can hear in the title of the song that attitude. In 1975 is when the Patti Smith group was signed by Arista Records, and that was Clive Davis who was responsible for that deal going through, and they released their debut album, which was called Horses, and that did really well. It got to number 47 in the charts. And the interesting thing about this album is that there was spoken poetry on there as well, and it had this punk sound, and punk was becoming a lot more popular at this time. So following this success, she toured in the USA and Europe, and she released her second album in 1976, and that was called Radio Ethiopia. Unfortunately, that wasn't as popular, it didn't sell as well as the first album, and in 1977, whilst playing in Florida, Patti fell off the stage, and unfortunately the stage that she fell off was 15 feet in height, and she was above an orchestra pit that was made out of concrete. So she broke several of her vertebrae and had to go through physical therapy. What Patti found is that while she was recovering from this injury, it gave her a chance to re-energize and re-evaluate and reorganize her life, and this is just the year after after she had that accident. So we can see her performing here, but also this is the year that she released the album that this song is from, and that was called Easter, and that got to number 20 in the charts. So the year after this, 1979, is when Patti released her album called Wave, and that was a massive hit as well. That got to number 18 in the charts, and she then had a prolonged period away from music in the early 80s because the next album that she would release was in 1988, and that was called Dream of Life, and that also included the single People Have the Power, and that was a really popular single. That got to number 19 in the US charts. Unfortunately, in 1994 is when Patti lost her husband, who died of a heart attack, and shortly after that as well, she lost her brother Todd unexpectedly. So 1994 was a really tough year for Patti personally, and Michael Stipe, one of her good friends, advised her to just get back into touring, which she did play with Bob Dylan in 1995 in December, and I think that was just to try and help take her mind off things. In 1996 she released Gone Again, and the next album would come a year later in 1997, and that was called Peace and Noise. And then in the year 2000 she released Gung Ho, and that album got her a Grammy nomination for her track, which was called Glitter in Their Eyes. And it wasn't then until 2004 when she released her album Trampin', and it wasn't until 2012 that she released her 11th studio album, and that was called Bangor, and that got to number 47 here in the UK and number 57 over in the USA. And before doing this album, Patti was just working at lots of different things artistically. She's one of those people that I mentioned earlier, just does so much artistically. She channels it through so many different mediums, and that certainly was the case because she wrote a book called Just Kids, and that was about her time in the 70s. So a great writer as well. She made her acting debut in a series called Law and Order: Criminal Intent, and that was when she was 64 years of age. So Patti, as well as being a fantastic musical artist, just strikes me as one of those people that buzzes around artistically and does so many different things and can turn their hand to anything and be successful in it. And that was certainly the case back in the 70s with Patti, and still up to this day. But thank you so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one.